Hello, and welcome to this math video just on general usage of your TI-84 graphing calculator. This video is going to focus on the math button found under the alpha button on your calculator and some of the corresponding options you can find under that button in those menus. So let's get started. When you press the math button on your calculator, you're going to see four different menus. Math, num for number, CPX, which stands for complex, and PRB for probability. In Applied 30 and 40, we're not going to use any of the functions under the number or complex menus, but you may have cause to use some of the stuff under math and probability, and that's why we want to look at it now. The first function we'll look at is the very first one you see when you press the math button, option 1, arrow frac. What this button does is what this option does is it turns decimal numbers into fractions. So say you have a decimal number like 0.625, and you want to see if you can turn that into a reduced fraction. Okay. Any number can be turned into a fraction as long as it's terminating. Any decimal number. This is the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths spot. So this fraction would be 625 thousandths. Sometimes it's hard to remember that, and sometimes it's a bit of a pain to reduce that giant fraction you get. So let's see if our calculator can help us a little bit better. If I type in let me clear that out. If I type in 0.625 and then I head to my math button and I press my math button and I look at option 1, just press enter. On my screen now it says it's going to take the decimal 0.625 and try to turn it into a fraction if it's able to and the fraction is not too huge or ridiculous. So I'll press enter and you can see 0.625 is equivalent to 5/8, which is what you would have got had you reduced 625 over 1,000 down to its lowest terms. The next option you'll see on there is arrow decimal. I'm not going to look at that option as it turns fractions into decimals, which your calculator does by default already. If I type in 5 divided by 8 for 5/8, it gives me the decimal by default. So we're going to skip that one over. And I'm going to look at option 3. Option 3 looks like another little 3. This is meant to be smaller and up off the line. That's an exponent and it's cubed. You can always cube a number by typing in, say, 6 and this little hat, which means to the power of 3. That gives you 6 cubed. Okay. Some people don't like using the hat for whatever reason, so if you wanted to do 6 cubed another way, you could type in 6, press the math button, go to option 3, and press enter, and you'll see 6 cubed, and you get the same thing. It's about the same number of key presses either way, so whatever makes you happy is fine there. The more important one is, and a little bit of my drawing went away here, that's supposed to look like a square root. Okay. The little square root symbol with a 3 beside it here actually means cube root. On your default calculator, you only have a square root function right above the squared. If you want to cube root a number, or do a higher root of a number, you need to head into the math menu. So for example, I know that the cube root of 8, a number that multiplies by itself 3 times to make 8, would be 2. So to calculate that on my graphing calculator, again just from my main screen, I would start immediately by going to math, go down to option 4, it says cube root of, and type in whatever you would like to take the cube root of and press enter. And there's your answer, 2. The next option, the xth root, is for doing a higher root than even cube root. Again, I know the 5th root of 32 happens to be 2. So in order to calculate that, before you go to the math menu, press a 5 for 5th root, then go math, and head down to option 5. The 5 here is just a coincidence. We want the xth root, and press enter. And you can see your big 5 turned into a little 5. 5th root of 32 equals 2. And that's how you do higher roots, 10th roots, whatever you like. You can do as high a root as you like in there, up to what the calculator's memory can hold, of course. We're going to shift gears here and we're going to look at the PRB menu. That's probability. You may or may not in your course, depending on when you're watching this video, have dabbled in these three options, NPR, NCR, and exclamation mark. I would suggest to you, if you have not done counting methods yet, which is a unit in the Applied 40, that you just stop this video now. You don't need to see this at this point. You can come back later if you want to take a look again at how these work. NPR is a permutation. So if I want to calculate from 8 people, I want to calculate in how many ways I can select 3 people to assign them into roles. That would be a permutation, and the notation would look like 8p3. So to type that into your calculator, again, you have to start with a clear screen. Type in 8 first, then go to Math, go to the probability menu, which you can sneak to by pressing the left arrow once. Pick option 2, NPR. See the 8 has been put in before your NPR. Put a 3 after and press Enter. And that gives you 336 permutations of 3 people out of 3 objects out of 8 objects. Similar to that is NCR. This is a combination where you're only selecting objects. So from 8 objects, if I only want to select 3 of them and not assign them into roles or positions, I just want to select 3 out of the batch, I would again go 8, I go back to Math, left arrow over to probability, and I would pick option 3 and then put in my second number, which is a 3. You'll notice a lower count here because there's less ways to only select people than to select and reorder people. Okay, so that's equal to 56. And the last little thing we're going to look at in this video is the exclamation mark. Now, a mathematician wouldn't call that an exclamation mark. It's right there. They call that factorial. It's an operator, and what it does is if you write a number, it has to be a whole number, meaning no decimal parts. It's got to be positive. So if you have a positive whole number and you write an exclamation mark past that, what that means is start at that whole number and multiply that number by every number 1 lower than it until you get down to 1. And when you get to 1, stop. So 5 factorial is equal to 120. 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Your calculator has factorial on it as well. So if you don't want to manually multiply everything together, you just go, again, let's quit out of here. I'll clear 5 and then head into Math, probability, and option 4 factorial. That says 5 factorial, and when I press Enter, I should get my answer of 120. For the rest of the functions, if you're interested or curious, you could certainly play around with them and take a look and see what some of them do, see if you can figure them out. Some of them are good for high school math, some of them are university level math. You certainly aren't going to break your calculator by playing around in this menu, but this is where you find a lot of the functions that they did not have room for on the buttons or as a second function on one of the buttons. So they hid almost every other math related thing away under that math button. Okay, thanks for watching the video.